We're, communications and engagement. We just help everything start smoothly. So we welcome people and we send them off happily. And that's kind of our job, to help.
Not sit through some hundreds of people walking the stage.
Well, we try and get work done during that point, because after you've heard your fifth speech about the journey of life, you get the rhythm.
That's funny. Well, Tim is going to join us, isn't he?
And he popped in and then he went away. So maybe he's trying.
Okay.
Yeah.
See. I'll text.
Who is RN?
It's a note-taking app. Sorry. Yeah.
Oh. How cool is that? Wow. Neat. That is a first. I have not been in a meeting where that has been used. This is a first.
I think Hannah down there on our capital team, they've been using it a lot because they just are trying to always keep track of project details, and I'm guessing it helps. Hannah?
It does. It helps a lot because it identifies who's speaking, and it'll put a list of who has action items due at the end of the meeting. So it's really helpful.
Very. I'll have to check and see if Zoom has something similar.
I think there are just a couple of extensions that you can download, and it'll work whether you use Zoom or Teams or Google Meets. It's a separate widget that you add to your whatever meeting application you're using.
Oh, thank you for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there's another one called Otter AI, like the animal.
Oh, got it. I'm writing it down. Thank you.
And there's Tim. So are we okay to get started, or do you want to wait a couple more minutes? What do you guys want to do?
I think it's okay to get started. If someone joins later, that's fine. Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's start with introductions because we're all mostly new to each other. So my name is Jessica Wise. I'm the Executive Director of Engagement for School District 11. And what in the world does that mean? That means communications, marketing, and all community partnerships. And I am joined by two colleagues today. One, because we're all a team on this. And two, because what you can't see, I hope not too obviously, is that I'm about 9.5 months pregnant. So the last thing I wanted to do was have this meeting and build a relationship and then disappear for 2 months. So I've got Lauren and Hannah here so that they can be points of contact in the meantime. So do you want to introduce yourself?
I'm Lauren Mason. Hi, everyone. I work on Jessica's team. I'm the Director of Partnerships, so I get to work with organizations and external agencies all the time.
Okay. And then Hannah?
Hi, Hannah White. I am a project manager and an architect with the capital program. I am also the project manager for D11 for the Palmer project.
And then Cheryl, why don't we start with you?
Hi, my name is Cheryl Brown. I'm the president of the Historic Uptown Neighborhood Association and mother of a Palmer High School graduate.
Congratulations.
So yeah, so so a lot of interest in the school, no doubt. And as Tim, pointed out, I'm a supporter of Palmer and all that. But as is the case, being the president of the neighborhood and a strong historic preservation advocate, I wear multiple hats in this meeting, and so that's my background.
Yeah, great. Let's go to Diane.
Yes, hi. I support Cheryl as part of. I'm on her board, vice president for Historic Uptown. I live on Dale Street, so just right. I've been there since '93, and just love our neighborhood, our community. I love the kids, right? And the other role that I play is I'm also a senior leader of a partnership group. I love that partnership word, Lauren, of Historic Neighborhoods Partnership. So there's a bunch of neighborhoods. We communicate with over 20 different neighborhoods, and we just support each other. We work very closely with the city administration on zoning, transportation, a lot of things. And the group's been around about 4 years. Cheryl is one of our voting members, and it's good stuff. I love Colorado Springs, love our vibrancy, our historic aspects, our character, the mountains, and we probably work a lot more on city stuff than we really want to be honest.
It's fair. That's great. Robin, what about you?
I'm Robin Walters. I am the secretary of the Middleshooks Run Neighborhood Association, and we're one of the groups that was forwarded the email about this meeting, and I thought, well, I just got off another Zoom meeting and I'm sitting here at my computer, so what the heck. And we have a board meeting tonight, so I can report to them tonight what I learned today from here. I'm also a member of the Historic Preservation Alliance for a very long time. Been part of that. So
Great. Thank you. And then Tim.
Good afternoon. I'm Tim Scanlon. I've lived here in Colorado Springs for 40 years now. I have 2 children that graduated from Palmer. I spent 25 years working with the city of Colorado Springs. Half my time spent in supporting historic preservation, and I've followed through with that interest since then. So that's my interest. Thank you.
Great. Now
Well,
here's where I do a sound check.
I
How
probably
are
just
the
want to mention,
violins in our background? Are they too loud?
I don't hear anything.
Okay, great. Okay, great. Sorry. Go ahead, Cheryl.
Oh, and I just also, I just also wanted to mention, I did only have one kid that graduated, but I was born in Colorado Springs, so I'm very familiar with the city, 63 years, and so lots of vested interest in our history and everything
Amazing.
that's going on.
So, thank you for all of that. And it reaffirms my original objective for this meeting, which was to do a lot of listening and learning from all of you. Sharing backgrounds. I've only been in the city since 2017. Now I can tell you I grew up in New Orleans, so historic preservation does matter to me. And I live in Old Colorado City in a house built in 1889, for better or worse sometimes, I always say. I actually have a PhD in Latin and Ancient Greek. So historic preservation is something that is dear to my heart. But learning from you all about what that process has looked like in the city is something that I think we're all very novel to and are just really open to hearing what your top concerns are, how you like to see some of these processes go, how you would like communication to look. And before we get there, I think just want to provide you with a top level summary of the district's process thus far and our master plan and where we're going and what our timelines look like. And then perhaps we can dive in from there. So as quickly as I can do it so that I don't keep you here for hours. This Palmer project kicked off a year ago in the spring, when the district decided to invest $100 million in a major high school renovation using what's called a COP funding structure. So no going to the taxpayers to ask for a bond because that was unsuccessful in 2021. And we decided we needed to do some creative things to invest in ourselves before we went back to the community for another bond. Hence this Palmer investment. Palmer, as you all know, is not just our oldest high school, but the oldest one in the city. And I think the beacon for what District 11 stands for, of education at the heart of Colorado Springs. And so reinvesting in our central school at the heart of District 11, at the heart of downtown, felt like a very meaningful and impactful first big step to make when we thought about reinvesting in our entire district. And so that's where we started. And quite transparently, right, some of these discussions started simply as Palmer needs HVAC, and maybe that's all it needs. Well, HVAC in Palmer was $30 million on its own if we didn't touch the building as it existed. And so then it was kind of a question of, well, is that really what Palmer needs? Or does Palmer need like a full arms around it investment to relook at how modern learning environments should operate? And what can we do to really elevate Palmer to a 21st century learning environment instead of just giving it HVAC and leaving it in a 1940 learning environment? Hence this more comprehensive renovation. So we have a few different complications to this project based on the funding structure that I just want to touch on briefly. And I want you to please remember that I am not the chief financial officer for the district. So don't hold me totally accountable to all the details. But with the COP, we have a very strict 3-year timeline to spend all $100 million. So if it feels like things are going very quickly, that is a lot of what this is. So from the moment that clock started, which was July 2024, we had 3 years to spend down all 100 million, not just encumber it and say we're going to do this, but actually spend it. And so that's why this process.
And in your language, spending it is entering into a contract, right? Is that spending it?
No. It's realizing the contract.
It's actually paying an invoice?
Yes.
Wow.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yes. So that is the speed at which this first $100 million is operating, and why you've already seen a groundbreaking ceremony for this first phase, because we're on the clock. So that first 100 million needs to be spent by July 2027, which
How much is the first phase?
100 million. So it's within that 100 million scope.
I
Yep.
see.
So last July, we brought on our architecture firm, RTA, who's local, in partnership with Perkins and Eastman, who's a international firm with places all over. They have done some local projects, like Tutt Library at Colorado College was designed by Perkins Eastman. I'm sure that's something you're all intimately familiar with. And they got to work not designing, but actually engaging. And I just want to emphasize that we are very, very aware in District 11 how much Palmer means to our District 11 community. The staff, the students, the very, very robust alumni, and so many of our community members. And so they didn't just start setting pencil to paper. We actually had a very robust community engagement process, of which on our Palmer renovation website, we have slides that kind of detail all the different types of meetings we've had, who we've talked to when. And at this point, we're at over 50,000 touch points with our Palmer community on like the number of times and places we've engaged just to get to the design of the master plan, right? It was, let's make sure that we get this correct based on what we're hearing from our community. So we asked a lot of questions. We got an idea of priorities. You know, for example, connected campus became a priority for students. Safety became a priority for students and staff. Preserving the history of Palmer was a huge priority. And so you'll see that reflected in the plan as well.
So when you say 50,000 touch points, does that mean a number of people or number of meetings? What is 50,000 touch? What's a touch point?
Sure.
People?
Great question. Yeah. So people, but there could be some reduplication of people who were hit multiple times, because, you know, some people came to both an in-person meeting and responded to the survey and came to a second town hall. Right. So, So that process of community engagement with the Palmer community has been ongoing since August of 2024. In May, the Board of Education approved the master plan for the design of the school. And I'm certain you all have seen it. If you haven't, we can definitely get you that presentation. It's also available on our renovation website. But that's the master plan that includes this big, bold idea of bringing the track and field up to the main campus. And of course, asking City Council for the closure of Boulder Street, which we understand is a formal application process. We haven't submitted for that just yet. We can get into those details too if you have questions about that. And now we're starting on phase 1, because even though we devised a master plan, we only have $100 million for the first phase. And this is where I just want to get kind of specific. That first phase is all contained on the southern block, on the Platte and Nevada block, Platte, Nevada, Platte and Weber on that block. So it consists of the construction of a brand new academic wing on Weber, and then the renovation of the 1939 building, because as I said, we've heard it's incredibly important that we preserve that original 1939 building on the corner of Platte and Nevada, the mid-century modern style that you all see. So that won't be touched on the outside. It will just be renovated on the inside to create more dynamic 21st learning spaces. It will also include a more public-facing alumni museum, because if you're familiar with Palmer, you know that there's a robust alumni museum, but it's tucked away on the 3rd floor of that building. That's incredibly difficult to access. You actually have to go through a classroom to get to it. So we're working with the Alumni Association on a more publicly accessible museum space from that 1st floor where even the public could get in. So that's all phase 1. Phase 2 would include working on what would be the plan for these properties on St. Vrain that the district is currently working on putting under contract. And I know that's the piece that you guys have had particular concerns about and what we want to talk about today. I just want to frame that the timeline is not to touch those tomorrow at all. And I think probably one of the reasons you feel like maybe you haven't heard from us is, we're just working fast and furious. And we've been so focused on the school and the school master plan that now we're taking a more external turn towards, okay, what if the district does put these properties under contract? Okay, now what are the questions we ask? And I don't mean that to sound haphazard, and I don't mean that to sound unthoughtful. I just have to be really honest about, the fact that we're the district and we're used to building schools and doing that process. And now we're taking on something kind of new. But our timeline is long. We have a long runway, and we want to have these discussions and surface all the right information to figure out what the right plan is going forward. So I've been talking for 20 minutes. Making assumptions about what you do know or what you don't know about the plan. So why don't I pause and let you ask me kind of any questions on any of that? Yeah.
I figured it'd be easiest if people let themselves be recognized by you before they start talking.
Oh, sure.
With regard to the elicitation of public input, and the consequent plan that resulted, in my opinion, this was a textbook example of how to do it right. I think that the layout that has been proposed makes an obsolete building functional well into the future. And so my hat's off to the architects that came up with this, as well as yourself, for absorbing and collecting and sorting all this information. So I do think in terms of that exercise, I do credit you for an extraordinary job.
Oh, thank you.
Um,
That's very kind of you.
I have other ideas, but I'll let other people speak first.
Yes, I attended a couple of the your engagement meetings. I was very surprised at the speed, and so now
Mhm.
you've mentioned why it was so fast.
Mhm.
Somehow in all this engagement, that whole sports arena thing, I just kind of the whole sports thing I put aside because it just seems so
Mm.
long term. So we
Mm.
don't have the money. So and so I just kind of, yeah. And I just, for some reason, I did not even get that those buildings were coming down. The whole, that whole block was, going to be decimated. I didn't get it, but then again, I didn't go to all the meetings. I went to some of the initial ones. Um, and so, you know, um, is the master plan solid? Is that it, or is it not? Is it just a outline? Is it solid for plan phase one, or is it solid for all the phases, or what is?
It, yeah, so it's solid for phase one because I
Mhm.
can't, I couldn't tell you it's 100% solid if I don't know exactly how we would fund the second phase yet.
Mhm.
So phase one is going forward. It's our priority, right? It's a brand new academic wing that's going to embody the IB philosophy of learning. It's going to have more collaborative workspaces. We're going to open up that 1939 building to do the same thing, to invite open group work, collaboration, a big floating library, media center through that big entryway, because that's what we really want to prioritize in Palmer. Phase two, our goal as a district is to go for a bond in the next 2 years here. And so we're hoping that by the completion of phase one, as a district, hopefully we've passed a bond, and then we can fund phase two without having to panic and look to outside sources. But you know as well as I do that I can't trust the voting. I can't control, sorry, the voting demographic of District 11. And so that will be something that's kind of left on the table, which is also why the architectural team has come up with plans for how we handle what if that doesn't come to fruition, right? And so phase one is totally contained and possible, and nothing will be left undone. No student space will be left unavailable at the conclusion of phase one in case we can't get the phase two funding. The other thing is I also can't control how city council votes on the permanent closure of Boulder Street, right? So the project team will be applying for that within the next few months here. But then that's a city council public process on which we'll also lead engagement sessions to talk to the community and get feedback and work through that complication. But we have to be prepared for the contingency that they say no. And then the final
can
thought
we
I just wanted
talk?
to, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Do your final
Oh, I
thought.
just wanted to add one more thought about the properties and understanding them. It was vague for us throughout the last few months. The reason it's come to fruition is because the owners themselves started approaching the district with the opportunity to sell, because I think they were just reading Gazette articles, seeing what was happening, and two owners came forward and offered to sell, and then that spread to the other two. As best I can understand, I'm not the real estate broker for the district, so I also want to be careful there. But so it might have been unclear through the process because this is just something that's just kind of naturally developed over the last couple of months and has taken us by surprise as well. So sorry, Diane, please go ahead.
Well, actually, I have questions. I want to make sure Cheryl's done with her line of
Okay,
thinking
sure.
first, though. Thank you.
I have a really quick question about the athletic field that's on Wasatch.
Mhm.
What's going to happen with that?
The master plan shows that we have the ability to put a baseball and a softball field down there, as well as relocate the tennis courts, because of course the tennis courts won't be able to have a space on that Boulder property anymore. So that's the plan. I think that's the very last phase of the plan. So, you know, it's not being touched anytime soon because that's currently where the gym and the field is for our students. And until we can build that up on Boulder, we need the gym and the field to stay down there. If we get everything completed, that would be the final piece of the puzzle.
And that, okay, and so the closing Boulder and all that, all the historic homes, that's phase 2, and then phase 3 is to fix up whatever's going on there. So where's your current track and field? Is that, my daughter was not athletic.
So
Hannah.
right, yeah. So right now, the current track and field is actually at the Earps gym on that east property. But it is not in any way whatsoever a compliant track. So they actually have to go to Wasson to do any type of practice, track, football, soccer. Everybody goes to Wasson right now.
And that's an equity issue for the district. Doherty, Mitchell, and Coronado have all gotten brand new track and fields in the past year and a half, Hannah. So Palmer is the only traditional high school in the district without their own. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah, absolutely. And the Earps property is not big enough. Even if we took down the building, it's not big enough to have a full-size competition track and field.
You know, another issue that the neighborhood has is parking. As soon as you put a sports whatever there, you know, where is all that parking? Where are all these people going to park? Because these people, most of these homes, you know, they don't have parking garages. You know, everything's on street, and you know, we really worked with the Robson Arena to ensure our parking, because that is a big deal to the neighborhood. And I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but the whole moving, you know, 2 different sports facilities, parking.
Yes, we have had many conversations about parking, and I do want to clarify that this is not a stadium. There will not be seating for hundreds of people. There will be 3 or 4 bleachers for students and coaches and things like that. Games will still be held at Gary Berry. Any type of meet or game or anything like that. So this is a competition field where they can practice, but games won't be held there.
Okay, so it's not even for games, it's just for them to practice. So
practice, well, it's track, field, soccer, football, all the sports.
Marching band.
Marching band and PE. So right now, it's not just athletics that have to walk down to Earps. It's the entire student body for PE as well. So this would help consolidate and keep safe the majority of the Palmer student body by keeping them all on one site.
So you're going to be removing one of the parking lots that's already there next to. Okay, so where are all the students intending to park?
So we're working through that. It's the open question, and we know how much that matters to everyone in that neighborhood, including us. So we've explored a few options. The first grandiose option you might have seen at a meeting was putting an underground parking lot under the field. It's expensive and it's difficult, 1. 2, our students very adorably really told on themselves and said, we don't want underground parking because we don't trust ourselves. And you have to listen to that. I think they should have a little bit more faith in themselves, but that's what they said. And so then the other thing that's really shaped these discussions has been, we reached out to the city and the Public Works Department and the Parking Enterprise, Rich Mulady at Parking Enterprise, and said, what makes sense to you guys? Because this is in part a D11 Palmer parking solution, but we keep hearing from our community partners like Harvest Local across the street on Weber, First United Methodist on the other side on Nevada, from some of the businesses. There's an increasing demand for parking in this neighborhood as that part of Tejon between Platte and Boulder gets even busier. So we said at Parking Enterprise, you know, what do you think? What makes sense as a more holistic city solution? And they said, let us please take the lead on doing a parking study for that part of town to determine where would be the best location for a parking garage that could supplement that entire neighborhood. And even I'm thanks for mentioning Robeson, where we are right now, even continued overflow and pressure from Robeson, which hasn't necessarily been fully settled. So where it sits right now is we're still exploring all of our options, and the city is taking the lead on a parking study so that we can think together with all the neighbors in the area about what would be most conducive.
Well,
So
we're definitely
question
now-
about the
Oh, go ahead.
question about the parking lot. How many cars does it currently
Hannah,
accommodate?
So it accommodate I believe it's right at 200 parking spaces, but on any given day during the week, there's usually about 75 cars parked there, maximum. I've never seen it full. And we've
Thank
been
you.
watching it for we've been watching it for several months because this has been a hot topic.
Well,
Okay.
the parking enterprise is not welcome in the historic district if they think they're going to take more down. I know, where would they put a parking structure?
they've just been looking at some of the places. So, you know, we have, for example, that YMCA lot that's shared with First Pres on the other side of Platte that they're looking to upgrade. So that's been part of the conversation. Is that a place that already exists? First United Methodist has said we have just an abundance of big surface area around us, and we feel like we could be contributing more to the neighborhood. So those two organizations have kind of halfway lifted their hands, but we've yielded to the city to say, what, you take the lead on this because this is your specialty, and then we'll support in whatever way we can.
So who in the city committed to taking the lead on a parking study? We work with quite a few. I'm just
Sure,
curious.
yeah. Public Works. So it was Rich Milady and
Right.
Gail Sturdivant.
Okay, got it.
Because the city always seems to think there's a lot more parking than really is. And so that's why, I mean, they could,
We've
oh, you
heard
guys
that.
have
We've
plenty.
heard that.
Oh, you're so good. And it's like, no, you know.
Yeah.
Okay.
We've heard
So
that.
you were
and-
talking with you were talking with the leaders then, right?
Yeah.
Not the individuals. Okay, got it. All right. And we know Gail. Richard, we don't know because he's relatively new, right? Okay.
What else?
Go ahead, Diane, if you have any questions.
I do. So I want to talk a little bit
Oh,
about
Tim does too.
process. Yeah, about process, if I may. So the master plan approval, what I thought I heard is that it was approved in May. I'm assuming that's May of this year.
Correct.
Correct, right. And so who was in that? What entities were part of that approval process? I mean,
That's
was
just
it within the city structure, the district, the school system structure, or was it
Sure.
outside of that?
Sure. That is just approval, sorry, from our control. So that's the School Board of Education.
Right.
And that's them approving the master plan, although, you know, let's be clear, that's a thumbs up for the master plan. You guys have done your work. It's good. Knowing that a master plan will evolve because it's conceptual, it's a master plan. So it's not a rigid, none of this will change. The really formal approvals that the board gave this May were for the advancing funds to Hannah and her team so that we could pay the construction company to get started on phase 1. So those are the most strict approvals. The only thing the city has approved, technically, Hannah's going to correct me on all of this. So like we just received the permit for the temporary closure of Boulder between Weber and Nevada during the duration of phase 1 construction because of all the heavy machinery we have to bring in, cranes, et cetera, for demolition. That permit was approved by the city. And we've been working really closely with them on those approvals. And as I understand, that's something we have to resubmit for almost every 90 days, Hannah, maybe, to make sure we're still in compliance. And I think that's it on that question.
Yeah,
Hannah, you want to add?
And the closure was from where to where again? I should know that,
Sorry.
but I don't.
Boulder between Weber and Nevada.
Got it. Thank you.
that is correct. And they do have to reapply every 90 days. We do have an understanding, though, that during the duration of the project, the permit will be continually approved.
And so in your mind, that's what, 2 years?
About 2.5 years.
2.5 years. Okay, that's cool. So I understand that the first week of June, there's going to be a formal application submitted to the city, to city planning on land use and zoning, et cetera. Can we talk a little bit about that? I mean, that's what was relayed to me. And I would assume that these homes that we're talking about, that there has to be some land use and zoning approvals prior to any actions taken on. Well, but I mean, if there's going to be a change in the use of the land, I would think that there would be some need for zoning. But can we talk about what exactly is happening the first week of June with the city? Yeah.
Yes. Hannah, do you?
Sure. Yeah, I've got that.
that.
So the first week of June, well, actually before the first week of June, there will be signs put up. Traffic is, of course, helping us with signage and things like that. Signs will be put up saying that, this closure is coming, estimated dates of construction. They are also helping us with the light at, what is that, Platt and Weber. Because one lane of Weber is going to be closed, so we're basically shifting it over right there. So the bike lane is going to be maintained. We're going to maintain, one lane going each way. Basically, the center turn lane is going away for this project, and there will be a hard barrier so that there's no issues with, the bikes interfering with the construction traffic or anything like that. So that's on Weber, and then the closure of Boulder between Weber and Nevada will also happen the first week.
Got it. Okay, so is there going to be some application that's submitted to city planning?
It's already been submitted, and it's actually a city approved plan for the closure.
No, she's talking about the form-based zone application to change. So Palmer is currently sitting in an R1 residential zone. And so as part of our application, and I'm going to give you the right people to talk to about this after I totally smash it. So Palmer is currently zoned R1 because I guess that's just how it's always been. And so as the project team submits the application for the vacation of right-of-way of Boulder to City Council for the formal request to close Boulder, they have decided to also submit to rezone Palmer from an R1 to form-based zone as part of trying to do our due diligence with the city and make things much more clean and organized. The district would incorporate those properties into that form-based zone application as well from residential. Now, that's about as far as I can get you. Our project partners at RTA, and then I'm certain you're familiar with NES planning. They definitely did ropes and arena, and they've done about every project. Chris Lieber is taking the lead on that application. So he would be a much better person to talk to about the ins and outs of that. And I can definitely get you in contact with them so that you understand kind of the details, because that's my knowledge.
Thank you for that overview. I appreciate that. So we also understand on the 2nd of June that, I don't know if you in particular, but representatives from this effort are going to what's called the Historic Preservation Board. What what, yeah, what is at a macro level? What's the purpose of that discussion at this point? What's happening?
From what I understand, the purpose of the discussion is an informative presentation on the historic preservation efforts around this Palmer renovation. So RTA has a historic restoration architect on team, Christine Costa, and she's going to give kind of a presentation on how her designing has been incorporated into the renovation of Palmer to not just keep historic aspects of it, but actually bring back some things that were original to the building that have gone away over time, like restoring the true original entrance on Nevada and some other pieces like that. And then I think they also wanted to talk with that board about options for what could happen with these properties and just be really transparent and share information. So that will be RTA and NES. And I will be there if I haven't had a child by then.
Wow, yeah, that's so exciting. That's really cool. Somebody keeps knocking at my door. I really appreciate your answers there. That's actually, what is the timeline for phase 2? What is the thinking of phase 2? I mean, like, it's going to span 2 years, 1 year, 6 months, 5 years. What's the thought there? Just curious.
Anna, do you have an answer on that? Phase 2.
So phase 2 is dependent on a bond. So
Right.
We do know that Superintendent Gall has asked the board to consider a bond. Whether or not they approve it for this year or next year, we won't know that just yet. As far as the construction portion of it, if we do move forward, we wouldn't technically be limited as much with the COP as far as our time frame goes, but it would be about 2 years for the construction of, the gym and the pool and all of those other entities.
Thank you for that. Just kind of trying to see the macro. Appreciate the answers to my questions. Let me step out for just a moment here. Yeah, thank you.
Cheers, Tim.
Jessica, I participated in the outreach for phase 1, and I appeared as a representative of the Patty Jewett neighborhood. And I was there with NES and Chris Lieber. I've worked with Chris and known him for years. And I really couldn't add much to the conversation in the sense that the connections of the Patty Jewett neighborhood to Palmer are pretty tenuous. There's a trail. That's about it. Like I say, I know Chris. Never did anybody suggest that history might be of interest. And certainly Chris knows that I'm a historian, and had there been any elicitation of information about the historic properties, I could have spoken for hours. So it's in my mind, I take the long view of things. It's a curse of being a planner. And Palmer has over the years, over the decades, has acquired nearly the entire block. It's understandable that they would want the entire block. Their motivation is there's no mystery to it. And from my perspective, they just never had the available cash with which to acquire these properties. And this project does provide that opportunity. The problem with real estate and the way practices work, owners talk to each other. So once interest became apparent, I think the very first thing that occurred was that all maintenance and repair stopped. You don't invest money into properties that the future is uncertain. And so once an entity such as a school district puts money down on an option, it's very hard to take a step back because all the good reasons for taking that step still exist. But I think that it's just really unfortunate that this National Register Historic District, this portion of these buildings are under threat. I, with regard to the Nevada property, I have concern over energy conservation and affordable housing. But now when we talk about the eastern part of the block, it's just very troublesome. And I wish the school district perhaps had sought some input prior to making that initial step. So that's what I have to say.
Thank you. And I just want to, with all humility, admit that, as I said at the beginning, this isn't what the district does well. And we were very much we were very certainly caught unawares in a way of things that you just mentioned. I wouldn't have thought about people start talking about selling, and investment and repairs just stop on behalf of the owners. It's probably something you all encounter quite frequently, and I want to admit full naivete that just wasn't something that probably came to us. And so I think we have all the humility when we say we should have been more forward thinking about that. And I wonder what we can do going forward to help stop some of these issues. I know that the plan, if the district acquires these properties, the contracts will come before the board a week from today, is to put another property management company in place, because again, we're not property managers. And so it would be reckless of us to try and take on property management in any sort of responsible way. And so we intend to hire a property management company to manage those properties while we're making these decisions about what the next step is. And so then my question to you all is, how can we do better? And what are the options for these properties? What have you seen done? What should we consider? And what would be the best way to move forward?
Good questions, and we can certainly take that offline and give it some, good constructive thought. Let me just say that the leaders here on this call, as well as many others in our broader organizations, we truly strive to work constructively, right? And really bring forth ideas and options. We like to work that way. And so we appreciate, I know I appreciate, and I'm sure Cheryl and Tim do appreciate your ask. Oh, okay, what are some ideas? That's a good ask.
Well, I would ask initially that you maintain those buildings until to let them go into disrepair would be upsetting, for sure. As we have a National Register Historic District, that's nothing to take lightly, and once gone, never return. And it's like Pac-Man chomping away at this district. It's very concerning, and it's concerning in a lot of ways. At the rate at which Colorado Springs is losing its historic assets. And I must admit, I'm extremely surprised that Palmer is undertaking the destruction of the properties potentially. But yeah, we'll talk about it. But it seems to me, now that it was put out there, it's like now it's out there. Is it inevitable? Is it just a matter of time? There are all these uncertainties that that put these properties at risk. Even if you don't, intend to build this, it'll always be a risk now. And then I'm just, well, Tim summarized it, but we can.
Well, those are excellent questions. Can that be answered now? is this inevitable that the properties will be removed, gone, taken away, demolished? Is that inevitable?
I'm struggling because I don't know how to, how to answer that 100%. I mean, in the truest sense, no, because like if we never move forward with a phase 2 and we decide that there are other ways to manage these properties, like there's still time, I guess, for this discussion. The honest answer from the vision is yes. I mean, the vision is to complete this project fully, unite this campus, and create a big central college type campus on those 2 blocks. And those properties are an obstacle to that vision. So, you know, I'm not trying to obfuscate here in any way, shape, or form. I just it's kind of a hard question to answer.
Is it fair to say the decision hasn't been made yet?
I think so. Yes, that is fair.
Okay. I have, if in my mind, if there is a desirable outcome for everybody, and I'm going to focus on the National Register properties because I think that simplifies the matter. The parcel is 12,500 square feet. It's a tiny parcel, but it would appear that the school district will go forward to acquire those properties.
Yeah.
And it makes sense hiring a property manager because you're in the business of education. Colorado College can probably fill your ears full of the problems of taking care of housing that they happen to own. So now, what I would like to see is that those 3 parcels be excluded from demolition. What I could see is that the buildings would be condoed off so that you could sell off the improvements while the school district keeps the land. And if that were to happen, then the private owners could operate it within the form-based code. Hopefully they'll keep it historic. And they can also access the tax credits to help with the rehabilitation of the properties because they will need reinvestment. But in that sense, then, the school district would have control of the land. Private owners would have control of the building and would invest on it. You would have agreements requiring them to maintain to a specific standard, of course. But that way, you have the land, you get, the use of the block with the exception of a tiny corner. And we retain the historic district's character. But that's a big ask, but it could be doable.
I think we should follow up.
Go ahead, Diane.
I was just going to say, I think that we can give this more thought and follow up with, these options, right? With maybe more specifics. And it sounds like that what Chris and somebody from RTA, I don't know anybody from RTA, but sounds like Chris Liebert and somebody else that in the 2nd June discussion at the Historic Preservation Board, they will do, as you said, talk about what will happen on the core school building itself, number 1, number 2, but also outline options for these properties. Have you seen what they're going to say about options yet, or no? Not yet?
Not yet. I know things we've talked about, and I think we all maybe were CC'd on an email yesterday about relocating, or at least some of us were. Cheryl, maybe you were on that. Relocation is an option that's been voiced to us, is something that's been done before, and how does that work? How does that happen? Again, that's something we would be actively learning about. But the district would be totally happy to transfer these properties to anyone for $1. if they wanted to relocate them, if that's the decision that people came to. I mean, we're not looking, I want to make abundantly clear, we're not looking to profit off of these properties in any way, shape, or form. So there's no motive on that side. We've also talked about, as part of the renovation and the architecture and connecting with Christine, our historic renovation architect, what are other ways we could honor that historic district in the construction of this project? Are there elements of the design we can incorporate? Are there placards we can put up? I know that feels a little bit like lip service in some ways, but what are just other creative ways that this has happened other times that feels a little bit more meaningful? I think those are the things that have surfaced the most at this point, but I'm not sure what else they're going to propose.
Do you have other options on how that field can be placed on this land without taking down those buildings? That's the only option, and that's it. Either you're going to have a track or you're not. Is that it?
Correct. It's either that, and then the other consideration is that athletic building, to incorporate all that we are planning to put into it, would go up to that corner on Weber and St. Vrain as well. So it's not just the track, it's also the athletic building, in part because one thing that's been highly requested of us is, in doing this, if we were to close Boulder Street, not to block the view corridor down Boulder, so that people living on Boulder are still getting that view of Pikes Peak. And so to put that athletic building ever so slightly more north, so that we can maintain that visual view corridor and we're not blocking it with a 3-story building. So that would require the removal of those properties as well.
And also, I do want to clarify that athletic building has not been 100% designed. It is, it's still part of a master plan, and it is still conceptual, so it may not be 3 stories.
Thank you.
So when you mean buildings, so the athletic building is what you're talking about that's going to be raised. Are there going to be other residential homes or anything raised in that area? I don't know what area you're talking about.
Oh, I'm sorry. So on currently where the tennis courts are on Boulder, so on that block from the tennis courts back towards the properties on St. Vrain on the Weber side, that's where this new athletic facility would go, replacing eventually the Earps gym that is down at the Plot Wasatch block. And so that building of scope and size that we have been planning for in the master plan would need to extend to the corner of Weber and St. Vrain. So that would make the removal of those properties necessary, as well as the track and field.
So
And I
we're
can
coming
follow
up.
too, with a PowerPoint if you haven't seen it, if you need help visualizing some of these images. So
Would that help, Cheryl?
I can go on the site and look at it. They've got a website. I've seen some drawings. Okay, are we done? Is the time?
I guess so. Our neighborhood, there's just so much activity in our neighborhood. This is just one of many. All right, so what's the takeaway here for us to, we'll definitely listen in, if not have people in person at the Historic Preservation Board. And then when you submit the form-based zone application, who are you working with in planning? Do you know yet?
I believe Ryan Tiefertiller.
Oh, with Ryan? Okay. Got it. All right. Yeah,
You've
he's
been
the
working with
form-based
him
zone.
from the beginning, right? I mean, he's been a part of all this.
He is, yes, full disclosure, he was also served on the steering committee for the project. So he's been a solid advisor just to make sure we're doing everything correctly.
Is he representing the city, or is that a personal thing?
No, he was representing the city.
you.
If anybody has any thoughts, they can email those to you, hopefully sooner rather than later.
Yeah, so what I was going to suggest is I can share the emails of my teammates here, Lauren and Hannah, and then also our lead architect, principal architect, Doug Abernathy, and any other project partners that I think would be helpful. And I have no intention of this being a one and done conversation. So I would suggest that following the meeting on June 2nd, I'll ask my team to reach back out and schedule some time in June to follow up on that June 2nd, on today and on the June 2nd meeting, and say, where are we? What are the current questions, thoughts, concerns, and how do we keep this conversation going? How does that sound?
Well, I would like you to also think about, you're asking us that we have options or whatever, but it doesn't sound like we do. So I would like to hear what your options, what you consider your options are for us to consider, because it sounds like to me you're going to have a field, you're going to have this building, everything is there. We really don't have options unless, of course, you A, don't get funding, or B, don't get Boulder closed, right? And so I'm not exactly sure, either we just stand strong and say, you know, we're going to protect these buildings, or maybe you can throw some options at us of what else you would consider on how to save these buildings, because I don't see how we have any options other than to just resist. So maybe you guys can consider what it means to, you know, because you're saying you're listening to us, and I hear you, I see you're listening to me, but it's not a matter of listening to us. It's like, what are our options? Because it sounds like everything has already been decided and these are the only layouts you have, and you're done. You get the funding, you're moving forward, right? I don't really understand what options we have. So maybe you could think about that a little.
Yeah, my initial response is, I'm sorry that you feel that way. I wanted to and do really believe that there's opportunity for open conversation for us to learn with you. Yes, 100%. Our master plan says these buildings shouldn't be there. For the vision of the master plan to come to fruition. And I think what my invitation is we have time and space to think about this as a team, not because it's going to necessarily overturn the decision about the buildings, but how could we be more thoughtful? How could we, I mean, Tim already brought up a really good point about investment and repair that we hadn't considered. And if we don't have you all as conversationalists in this, then we won't surface many of those important things. So I just want to reiterate, that's my intention. And yes, we would be more than happy to, in a follow-up meeting, come with, here are some ideas. What do you think of these? We're more than happy to lead that conversation.
Okay.
Thank you very much for your time. And congratulations.
Oh, thank you.
My goodness.
Thank you and best wishes.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a boy
All right.
or
Have a
girl.
good day. It's a girl. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
You have
Thank
a
you.
name? You have a
Thank
name?
you.
Goodbye.
It's top secret because my mother-in-law can't know. So.
Okay, we don't know her, so you're safe.
Thank you all. We appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you. Bye-bye. Have a good day.